Every morning at exactly 7:15, an old man arrived at the city park. He wore the same faded brown coat, the same scuffed leather shoes, and carried a small worn canvas bag. He'd sit and feed the pigeons, each grain seeming to matter immensely, then watch the world hurry by. To most people, he was invisible. Kids ran past, office workers glued to their phones detoured around him, and teenagers called him the park ghost. No one knew his name, no one cared to ask. His name was Thomas Halle. He lived alone in a tiny apartment where the radiator knocked all night and the walls smelled of dust. On one shelf sat a small wooden box, locked for decades. Inside were medals, photos, and letters stained with time. Thomas rarely opened it. He had learned long ago that the world preferred forgetting. Decades earlier, Thomas was a young man with steady hands and clear eyes. When war broke out, he didn't hesitate. He left behind his fiancée and his quiet dreams, believing, like so many others, that bravery would be remembered. But the war wasn't like the posters. Thomas became a medic, and then something more. When communications failed and officers fell, he stepped forward. He dragged wounded soldiers through gunfire, treated injuries under bombed-out buildings, and once held a collapsing bridge just long enough for an entire platoon to escape. He never talked about the screams or the smoke. He just did what had to be done. When the war ended, there were parades and speeches. But paperwork got lost, names blurred. Thomas was sent home quietly with a handshake. His fiancée had married someone else. The factory had closed. The country and Thomas moved on. Years passed, his posture bent, his medals stayed locked away. He learned how easy it was to disappear in a crowded city, especially if you never asked for anything. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. A high school history class came to the park for a project. Their assignment was to interview strangers. Most people refused. But a quiet girl named Emma noticed Thomas. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. "Can I ask you a question?" Thomas looked up, surprised. People rarely spoke to him. "If you'd like," he replied. They talked about small things, the weather, the park. Then Emma asked, "Were you ever in the war?" Thomas was silent for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said. Something in her careful listening broke through the walls he had built. He didn't give details, but he mentioned places and dates that piqued her teacher's curiosity. After the trip, the teacher started digging through old military archives and declassified documents. What he found was stunning. Thomas Hale's name appeared again and again, not in headlines, but in footnotes and commendations. He had led evacuations, saved dozens of lives, and altered the outcome of critical engagements. One report called him the man who wouldn't retreat. The school contacted a local journalist. Within weeks, the story spread. One morning, Thomas arrived at the park to find a crowd near his bench. Cameras, flowers, flags. Confused, he tried to turn away. "Mr. Halle," someone called. "Please, just a moment." They told him what they'd found. They told him that what he did mattered. That it had always mattered. At the City Hall ceremony that followed, officials read his citations aloud. Medals were placed in his trembling hands. People stood and applauded, some with tears in their eyes. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel invisible. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. "I didn't do those things to be remembered," he said. "I did them because someone had to, but thank you for seeing me." After that day, Thomas still went to the park. He still fed the pigeons, but now people greeted him. Strangers sat beside him and listened. The wooden box in his apartment was no longer locked. History had finally caught up with him, not because he demanded it, but because someone took the time to look closer. And the war hero no one recognized was invisible no more. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that matters.